Welcome. This is going to be an astrology compatibility video, and this time Cancer and Pisces, which is an interesting matchup. Now, Pisces would be the most mature of the water signs. Um, and Cancer would be the youngest of the water signs. And so there's definitely kind of there's a bit of a mismatch in that. But the unfortunate thing is Scorpio is probably the most grounded of the water signs. I've seen a fair amount of good matchups between Cancer and Pisces. I will say that. However, there is a large amount of obstacles because you are both very well when together, not necessarily with other signs, but when together, you're both kind of lost in the daydream, so to speak, in the imagination and the emotions. But there's also kind of some differences because Cancer is typically much more emotional about like the dynamics of family and career and public opinion and what the home looks like and feels like and things like that. Whereas Pisces is much more emotional in terms of like individual and self, and you're both caretakers, but that care a great deal, a great deal about how others feel. But I would say like Cancer is much more like um, how do others feel about me? Whereas Pisces is much more like how do others feel about themselves? And it's kind of and that can be opposite sometimes. It depends on what kind of Cancerian you are, what kind of Piscean you are. Now, you both have some good strengths and similarities and also some interesting contrast, being Cancer is ruled by the moon and Pisces is ruled by Neptune. Um, It's interesting though because like both are somewhat changeable, but Neptune is much more consistent. Like the moon goes through each of the constellations and so takes on all the other elements of the signs depending on where the actual moon is in that moment. Whereas Pisceans are typically always kind of in their element of emotionalness. And I don't know, like you can find an interesting pull between each other. Pisceans are rulers of the 12th house, which is mysticism and spirituality. And it's funny, in a house, I actually give Pisces the yard because they're much more about the imagination and exploration. And, like I'd imagine like a kind and gentle grandma or great grandma out playing with great grandchildren out in the yard, like building or making flower crowns and mud pies and things like that, and having that sort of fun, and not so worried about what's going on in the house. Whereas Cancer, the fourth house, very much is literally the home, and I liken it to the kitchen, and it's related to mother and things like that. So you have some relationships in there that are good between like mother and great grandmother, but there's also a lot fair amount of differences in that, and you both have a tendency to use emotional manipulation to try to get the other to intuit what the other wants rather than just being direct with each other about what each other wants. And half the time, you might not even be aware of what it is that you want, or you might change what it is that you want and then feel bad about changing what you want after you said that it was what you wanted. And so that can create some complications between Cancer and Pisces. But you also both typically have a really strong love and appreciation for music and art and indulging in your childlike nature and things like that. And so, I mean, it really depends on a lot of other elements that are in there. I have not seen a lot of other astrologers really match up Cancer and Pisces as like a really strong dynamic, but I've seen a couple of relationships between Cancers and Pisceans that were very strong. I've also seen a fair amount of others that were very chaotic, and it was very kind of like codependent, like both recognized that the other was too emotional or not logical enough in their own ways, that it just didn't quite like neither one of them was really all that happy in the relationship, but they were both such caretakers and so empathetic that neither of them wanted to end it because it would hurt the other one's feelings, you know? And so there can be kind of that codependent nature between a Cancerian and a Piscean, and you both really crave to have somebody who is much more emotionally stable for you in a romantic relationship. That being said, I've seen a fair amount of really strong friendships between Cancerians and Pisceans, especially if you both have similar love languages and are able to kind of, how do I put it? Like, there's a few friendships I've seen between Cancerians and Pisceans that it's almost like having your own like alien language, sort of like between twins. How sometimes twins can have their own language that to others seems like nonsense, but between the two of them, it absolutely makes complete sense. Or kind of a Pleiadian starseed language of sorts. And so, if that element is there romantically, you could probably have a stronger relationship than you could with other signs. But it requires a lot of other elements in there for really for a long-term healthy emotionally secure relationship. And so that's what I'm going to say about that. Let me know if you've had other experiences, um, and any specific questions in the comments below. Otherwise, I will catch you in the next video. Thanks for watching.